Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 50. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Friday, Steelers Nation, as the Pittsburgh Steelers get ready to take on the Cleveland Browns this Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And Dave, I asked this last time. I'll ask it again. Where to begin with today? The AFC North has been turned upside down with injuries. Just put every Steeler in a bubble, it feels like, for this game. We got a lot to talk about today, my man.
Yeah, we do. Happy Friday to you and the listeners. And, I couldn't help but thinking back, before the season starts and all, we're asked to talk about this, that, and the other, predictions and all like that. And I think at some point we usually say, you never know. Look, I tried to preview the tackles ahead of the season that TJ Watt was going to face. And that's, you want to talk about something going evergreen quick, as the kids like to say. You just never know what twists and turns are going to happen along the season with injuries. And Lord knows the Steelers have had their share of injuries. And now we see some very impactful injuries this past week, in the AFC North here that have really shaken things up at this point. The Steelers are, they lost back-to-back weeks. They have lost inside linebackers for the season and all, but they're getting healthy in other aspects of this thing. It seems like the worm has kind of turned again. And man, going into this game on Sunday against the Browns, Alex, I mean, this, you would agree this is another winnable game at this point for the Steelers. And man, if they come out of Sunday with a win against the Browns, barring another catastrophe, injury wise here, you really have to like the chances of this team to make the playoffs.
Sure, you never root for injuries, but the lanes are opening up for Pittsburgh to really, take control of playoff berth and being in contention. Of course, they're in contention right now, but really starting to take some serious steps towards the back half of the season to lock up that spot or be in firm control. And so we'll talk about Pittsburgh and their injuries, which they're dealing with multiple in a moment. But because we let off the show with it, have to talk about what happened last night. Of course, the Ravens beating the Bengals 34-20, but that almost feels like a side story to everything else that occurred for the Ravens, losing tight end Mark Andrews to what seems like a season-ending ankle injury, according to head coach John Harbaugh. He got tackled, that hip drop tackle by Logan Wilson early in the first quarter. And then for the Bengals, quarterback Joe Burrow with a right wrist sprain, according to Bengals head coach Zach Taylor. What his status will be going forward for the Steelers-Bengals game next Sunday, we don't know, but it looked painful, that injury that Joe Burrow suffered. And so if he can't go, it'll likely be Jake Browning. And so Pittsburgh in AFC North critical games will face, we know this, Dorian Thompson-Robinson on Sunday, and then potentially face Jake Browning the week after that.
Boy, you want to talk about not seeing that coming. I had no idea that on the start of the season, I didn't have on my bingo card watching Dorian Thompson-Robinson tape on a Friday night of week 11. And then I might have to turn around and watch Jake Browning tape next week there. So yeah, huge development in the AFC North. Man, Logan Wilson was wrecking people.
Yeah, you get a free haircut on your next injury. 3 of them last night.
Yeah, is that a hat trick in the NFL? The way he was crushing people, because Odell Beckham Jr. had to leave that game with a shoulder injury thanks to Logan Wilson. But that's a whole nother discussion altogether. There, all eyes obviously will be on what happens with this Joe Burrow thing, but. I know Zach Taylor said it's looks like a wrist sprain or something like that. It sure seems like it might be worse than that. And look, at worst, or at best, it looks like he's going to potentially miss the game against the Steelers. And you don't want to look ahead in this thing, but going into that game last night, the thought in my head is, man, if the Bengals can somehow upset the Ravens in their house on Thursday night, and then get that long week and get a guy like T Higgins back, who they didn't have in that game last night, things are going to be looking up for the, that's, in other words, that was going to be looking at like a hard test for the Steelers in week 12. But, if they don't have Joe Burrow and have to start a young quarterback, in Jake Browning, that looks a lot more daunting. And now look, they're 5-5. The Bengals they're 0-3 in the division. It's not looking great. And then obviously the thing with the Ravens and Mark Andrews, what a big part of the offense that is. Now they do have some tight ends over there. So I think, obviously as long as they have Lamar Jackson, they'll be in good shape and all. But things really shifted with those two teams. And then back to the Browns, we have a lot to talk about with them as well.
Yeah, we do. And I'll just say big picture, and we'll talk about it more throughout this show, throughout next week. Despite facing backup young quarterbacks, I still expect these games to be close because of Pittsburgh's offense and just the nature of AFC North battles. They're always close. They're always down to the wire, really, no matter who is starting and who's playing. It's just kind of the way the division seems to go. And the division has still been as close as any in the NFL this season. But let's bring it to Pittsburgh here for a second to talk about their injury report from Thursday. 3 players not practicing who did not practice on Wednesday or Thursday. That's safety Keanu Neal, safety Minkah Fitzpatrick, nose tackle Montravius Adams. Limited was Cam Hayward with the groin. I think they're just being super cautious with him. I expect him to play. Returning in full, wide receiver Deontay Johnson and Pat Frymuth, who still is on IR, that window opening up to return. He was limited Wednesday, full on Thursday, and so assuming he's good today, no setback, there won't be an official game status on him because he's still on IR, but it's looking very much like he's going to play and return Sunday against Cleveland.
Yeah, I think the 3 to watch there and it's not looking great when it comes to Minkah and Montravius, and then Keanu Neal with that rib. It's not sounding too great, especially when the talk right now is that Trenton Thompson, probably going to see him back on this roster over the weekend, whether it's on the 53 or whether it's through an elevation, and probably going to see. I think, didn't he even say that he thinks he's going to start
right.
at this point, which would lead you to believe that at least one, that Minkah's not going to be there, and probably, it's not looking great for Neal as well too. So I think probably the real mystery on the injury report as we get into Friday here might be what happens with Keanu Neal, but it does sound like, Thompson, at least right now, is going to play, or at the very least see a lot of playing time in this game overall. As far as everybody else on the injury report, they're probably going to shake out with none of those guys receiving status designations. And once again, I would expect Minkah and Montravius Adams to be ruled out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here. I think we got to talk about that some more. All the defensive injuries, for as much credit as Pittsburgh's defense has gotten, and rightfully so, to lose Cole Holcomb and Quan Alexander, and to be down, potentially looking more likely than not, Neal and Fitzpatrick, to have a safety duo of DeMonte Casey and likely Trenton Thompson. The Steelers defense, how many blows can they take before you kind of see some of the fractures in that? And that's a big concern I have right now.
Yeah, I think the only saving grace in all of this is you're facing a younger quarterback, a rookie quarterback, right?
Yeah. And your edge guys are healthy, and if they can dominate, that's going to take some of the pressure off the coverage end. Right,
and as we'll talk about later in the show, the Browns are beat up at tackle and all, on top of it. But when you look at Alex, have your pencil sharpened, because I think you're going to be busy with some charting, trying to figure out who's in and who's out. It certainly does sound like we're going to see a pretty good rotation there at inside linebacker, right? With the Landon Roberts, with Mark Robinson, with Mikael Walker. I don't, Tariq Carpenter, I think, is going to be active for this game. I'm not sure we're going to see very much of him, barring, knock on wood, more injuries there. But it is going to be interesting to see, how they rotate these inside linebackers, who gets a lion's share down distance. You obviously got an athletic quarterback in DTR. So once again, all I think that I know at this point is that you're going to see Walker, Roberts, and Robinson all see playing time in this game. And obviously, as we mentioned, Trenton Thompson probably going to see. It's going to be interesting to see the minutia of how that plays out on the field.
So you don't have any sense in terms of how they'll rotate? Could Walker be used in more passing downs? I think Roberts honestly may be the all situations linebacker in this game, just for the communication aspect. Ideally, you don't want to play him in dime, but this is a team that played Robert Spillane in dime, who's not the most athletic, probably more athletic than Roberts, but not Ryan Shazier running out there last year. They took him off, or they took Bush and Jack off the field for Spillane because they value the communication, the blitzing aspect. I think it's going to be a similar calculation with Roberts, where communication is paramount. It's first and foremost, and so we're going to sacrifice some of the athleticism for guys that can, communicate, make sure we're all on the same page, especially with a secondary that's got injuries and losing some veterans at safety.
I think it also plays into your hand that we would expect the Browns to try to establish the run and run a lot in this game. On top of it, and obviously Landon Roberts is a downhill guy. Now, look, the Browns could surprise you and come out and try to throw the football and get a guy like Roberts, isolated. But yeah, I think you're right. I think predominantly, you're going to see Roberts out there. But what happens if when you get into some of these sub packages from there on out? Do you want Robinson? Who do you want to maybe be a coverage linebacker? Is that where Walker comes in? That's the minutia that I'm interested to see.
My guess is no, because I think someone made a comment, either Austin or a player, that they were always going to pair Walker with somebody. Then we're going to put him out there by himself, and that would lend yourself to believe it won't be dime, where he'd be the only off-ball linebacker out there. So again, ideally, you don't want to land Roberts in your dime packages, but right, from a communication aspect, that's the most valuable thing. Again, I made this point on Twitter or an article. Whenever the two touchdowns Pittsburgh allowed Sunday against Green Bay, the first one came the play after Alexander got hurt. The other one came the one snap Roberts did not play after Alexander got hurt. It was a dime package play with Robinson out there. And so you have a pretty clear correlation between change of communication, different people out there, and touchdowns. So that has to be the most important thing, is the communication aspect. So I think Roberts will probably be an all situations type of guy, and they're going to just rotate a guy like Walker in just to probably lessen the load on somebody like Mark Robinson, so that guy's not responsible for playing 100% of the snaps whenever he's been a backup for most of the season.
So in base, you're expecting a lot of Robinson and Roberts.
I do, yeah. I think in nickel, maybe you see some Walker rotate in a little bit. It's probably my guess right now.
And then obviously Walker will help out on special teams along with Carpenter.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me. I think Carpenter will be a core guy there. I don't know if Walker will do a ton, but could pick up some playing time there for sure.
All right. How many, if you had to guess an over or under of snaps for a guy like Walker in this game, barring injury, what would it look like? 8, 7, 10?
No, I think it'll be more than that. I don't know exactly. It depends on obviously the number of snaps total there is to absorb. I think he'll play maybe a third or so. He's got experience. He was a heavy snap player for the Falcons last year.
1,000 snaps he's got.
Right. And Austin, I think, incorrectly joked and said 1,000 tackles, 100 tackles for Walker last year. So he's not new to the NFL and what that's all about. So I would say maybe about a third. I think he'll rotate a little bit with Robinson in base and nickel.
And you agree this does play a little bit more into the Steelers' hands with the Browns quarterback situation, with us expecting them to try to be heavy on the run.
Sure, I think they're going to be ultra heavy against the run, but we'll talk about it more. But I think they're going to run some empty in this one and really try to isolate and challenge these linebackers. They know that Pittsburgh's hurting. They just lost their two most athletic and best coverage guys, and Cleveland has always had success running empty at a heavy personnel that keeps Pittsburgh in their base defense and spread them out. So I think they want easy reads for DTR and the ball to come out quick with the tackles who are beat up. So I think they're going to do some more stuff in the passing game than we expect.
Right, but we still expect a lot of zone from the Steelers defense in this one.
Yeah, no, I think with the mobility of DTR and just the lack of athletes to really cover out there. But still, if you kind of get zone, situation, just get the tight end over the ball, and you could really try to, make life tough on these inside linebackers for Pittsburgh.
Assuming, we don't see Minka, assuming we don't see Neal, and obviously not, I think Adams his absence is lesser with Keanu Benton coming on and all like that now. How on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about this defense for this game and this game only? With 10 being very concerned.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer. Maybe a bit more than some people who look at this and say, oh, they don't have Chubb, they don't have Watson, should be an easy day. I think it's going to be tough because Pittsburgh's still missing some guys, and the Browns, I think, are going to be schematically strong and have a full week to plan with DTR, which they didn't have in week 4 whenever he started, kind of 90 minutes before kickoff. They realized Watson couldn't go, and DTR was going to have to be the guy. So maybe a 4 or 5, but I think there's some challenges that Cleveland's still going to give Pittsburgh in this game.
Do you buy Mike Tomlin's talk the other day that communication's actually easier on the road?
Yeah, I can buy it because the crowd noise isn't an element. You know, whenever you talk about communication issues for the opposing offense when you're at home, well, it's just as loud for the defense. And so, yeah, I think that there's validity to that comment.
All right. And obviously, as we mentioned, there seemed to be some bust in communication. Well, we know, Mike Tomlin talked about communications on the defensive side of football against Green Bay.
Right. Should mention I'm burying the comment here, but a little bit later in the show, we'll have a friend of the show, Scott Petrak, on. He covers the Browns for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina Gazette, also for brownzone.com. And so we'll get his perspective on DTR, the state of the Browns, what happened with Watson, the injury situation, and more with Scott in just a little bit. But to go to the Browns and their injury situation, I know, Dave, the quarterback headlines everything, rightfully so, but we have to talk about the tackles. I mean, their tackles are really beat up. No Jack Conklin, no Jed Wills, Dawan Jones, status is up in the air. That's a situation that I think we have to talk about a lot more than we are right now.
Yeah, look, Jaron Christian probably going to start at left tackle. We'll have to see what happens with Dawan Jones. I mean, could it be James Hudson at right tackle, who, TJ Watt has worn him around as a hat, I think, in the past there. And on top of it, with them, really wanting to, they're going to have to make sure that their run game, regardless of who their tackles are, if they get in a situation where they're predictable, that's really where this thing can go sideways on them with the Steelers edge rushers. And at this point, I am kind of a little upset with the amount of snaps that this team had Highsmith and Watt play against the Packers. Although, and this kind of gets into our coordinator corner portion of the Friday podcast there, Teryl Austin doesn't sound concerned about it at all. Basically saying if those guys want to be out, end of story. If those guys want to be out there, they're out there. And it will be interesting after this game if the Steelers aren't able to get after the quarterback, because look, they did okay against the Packers overall, but the pass rush lacked overall in that game. And DTR Jordan Love, there's some comparable things when you look at DTR with Jordan Love. And Jordan Love was still able to sling the football down the field and had time to do it, was able to be, a little mobile in there as well, too. So, back to the original point, it's going to be interesting to see Dawan Jones, how he comes out on the Friday injury report for them. And even banged up, he's probably not going to be 100%. But man, if they have to go with Jaron Christian and James Hudson as their tackles, you would think major advantage for the Steelers there.
You would hope so. Been down that road before. The Houston game, kind of thought the same, and obviously didn't play out that way. So it depends on how well you can stop the run. The screen game, I imagine they're going to lean on those things. I think that's another reason why Cleveland's going to run some empty in this game to try to slow down that pass rush, minimize them early, get the ball out in 1.5, 2 seconds. Kind of that elongated run game almost with the real quick passing game. But yeah, on paper, it looks good. Now, I think the Packers game, the rotation was poor, and that can be a positional coach thing. It can be on the players for not pulling themselves out, but it was just one game. I think generally speaking, the rotation has been fine this year. I thought it just got sideways against Green Bay. Hopefully there's no repeat of that. But I think you can't have Watt and Highsmith play 97 and 93% of the snaps and expect those guys to be good and fresh for the final crucial drive of the game.
Agreed. And something else we'll watch on the injury report, Marquise Goodwin, man. They traded away who was the Michigan kid they traded away?
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Donovan Peoples-Jones. No, and Goodwin is dealing with a concussion, I think, and obviously they still have Amari Cooper. Do you consider having Joey Porter Jr. follow around Amari Cooper in this one?
It wouldn't shock me. Would you say they traveled with Watson last week? I felt like on third downs, Porter was moving with Watson situationally. So it may be the same with Cooper. Now, again, my concern is Cooper's a really fluid, nuanced route runner, and Porter a little bit stiffer, a little bit taller, and maybe will give him some trouble in that regard. So I don't know. I'm not as confident they're going to travel as often as they did against, say, Hopkins, who was more of a contested catcher, physical guy, where you wanted a really physical big corner to match up against that. So I'm not really sure how it's going to go. It wouldn't shock me if they did, but it would not shock me if they did not either.
And Dorian Thompson-Robinson's accuracy lacks. He's made some interesting decisions. If you go back and watch that tape against Baltimore earlier in the season, and the deep ball just look, it's a small sample size, but I know you looked at the tape. I looked at the tape. You look at the stats. I mean, his deep ball hasn't been there yet.
No, but it's so tough to judge that Ravens game. I mean, this guy did not expect to start and play, and then 90 minutes before kickoff, Watson says, I can't go, and you're facing against Baltimore, and the game plan wasn't tailored to him, so it wasn't there. But it is hard to really know, with a full week and him being the guy with full practice reps, how much different things will look. You have to assume it'll be better. How much better, we'll find out.
All right, as far as other injuries, I think that Thornhill's somebody to watch. Safety of theirs on the injury report, and I think Denzel Ward is banged up a little bit as well.
Right, he's got a neck issue, but I think he's going to play. Their corners are going to be healthy overall. They got good safety depth overall, too. So, yeah, that defense is in a pretty good spot right now still.
All right, shall we go to the coordinator corner?
Yeah, we'll briefly talk Canada and Austin, but we're both itching to talk about some Danny Smith here in just one moment. Not much from Canada, really, in what he had to say. Austin didn't have a whole lot more either, other than the things we just talked about, the likely three-man rotation at inside backer, the comments about the high volume of snaps for Watt and Highsmith. What else did Austin have to say?
We already hit on the rotation of the linebackers. I mean, of not being concerned about Watt and Highsmith. Had some praise, obviously, for Keanu Benton, the trust that he has in Landon Roberts. Trying to think what else stuck out to you.
He did imply that Minka and Neal are basically game time decisions based on their injury status. We'll get information today. So, hopefully at least one of those. I don't think Minka's playing. Neal has a better chance, but it seems a lot less certain than I felt to start this week.
Right. I don't think he said too much overall. Just said that the D-line rotation has shortened a little bit, but he did say that Cam Hayward can't play as many snaps as he would like to just yet, so there will be some rotation there. But within all that, I think we're going to see, the same group of 6 out there that we saw against the Packers. Overall, I think Montravius Adams will be inactive. Obviously, you don't have Fehoko on the 53 at this time. Overall,
will Liao play more than 4 snaps? Because it really became a 5-man rotation, and really kind of 4 because Loudermilk played a handful. Again, probably expect to put your run guys out there against this heavy personnel Browns team.
And Loudermilk didn't look all that awful against the run against the Packers, did he?
No, he's made some plays. I think they're not so much in the Green Bay game, but they've run some overfronts where they're getting the D end on the tight end, which has helped. But yeah, I think Loudermilk and a couple of rotational snaps has been okay.
And, with Armand Watts, I think you would mostly want him out there in passing situations. So maybe we see a little bit more Loudermilk and Liao in this one, especially if they can keep, on in early down situations. And I think if you get it, obviously, in pass rush situations, you might, that's when you see some Armand Watts. So I would think an uptick in snaps for guys like Liao and Loudermilk possibly.
Yeah, I think so as well, Dave. All right, Danny Smith forever. That is the conversation here.
You
Danny
couldn't
Smith,
wait to get to that, could you?
Oh, it's a great time of year, Dave. Don't hear from Danny Smith too often these days, but after him taking that big shot on the final play of the Packers game where Casey gets pushed by the Packers offensive tackle and runs over Danny Smith, and he seemed to be okay overall, but finding out that He's, okay by Pittsburgh tough standards, but he revealed to reporters he's got a rotator cuff injury. I think he tore 3 muscles in his rotator cuff. Will need surgery at some point, but he'll be out there on the sidelines this weekend, Dave. And that's Danny Smith, the legend in a nutshell.
Yeah, and full disclosure here, Alex and I tried our best to go back to find that injury that Danny Smith talked about. What did he do to his leg in that one? He had to have
broke his leg,
but he had to have a plate and like 186 screws. Not that many, but Danny has no problem talking about past injuries, does he?
There's a lot more than I assumed there would be in his resume.
And what year was that? 1996 was it, or 3? I can't remember.
Somewhere mid-90s.
When he was with Georgia Tech. Got run over by I think one of his own guys on the sideline there. I'd looked, man. I was trying to make you so happy and find that clip of him.
It's what I want for Christmas, Dave.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. I'm gonna have to check some of the torrent boards and see if I can unearth that Georgia Tech Clemson game. But Danny Smith is a rub some dirt on it kind of dude, and he did. I thought his comments about the tight end,
Rodney Williams.
Rodney Williams was interesting. Saying, man, I can't sit that guy now because Rodney Williams obviously pulled him out of the bottom of that pile and all like that. But glad he's okay overall. But it was a hard fall. That he took a hell of a charge there.
And he's not a young Danny Smith. He's 70. He made the comment he's got to learn to get the hell out of the way. Well, you're 70 and not getting out of the way. I don't think he's going to change his stripes anytime soon. But glad
he tried to push Minka out of the way, didn't he?
Did he really? I didn't even take a look at that.
I think that's Minka there that he's trying. He's trying to jump on the grenade there and save Minka. It looked like before taking that hit there. But
he knows where this team's bread is buttered at.
Absolutely.
If it's him versus Minka, I'll take the hit.
Yeah. But he had no problem talking about that injury or any other injuries in the past.
Yeah. So Danny Smith forever. I think everybody now fully understands what I've been saying for a couple of years. But no, glad he's okay. And then just kind of beyond that to the football aspect, there were some really interesting comments. One about Presley Harvin that was more predictable, talking about him finding consistency, professionalism on the field, and he's a really talented kid. And we have seen more consistency with Harvin. I think it's been a good year for him overall. Not perfect, still some things to clean up. But I do think, especially that kind of pin deep, quote unquote, coffin corner punting situation, dating back to training camp has been really good for him. And the punting numbers are up for him. I think year by year, he has gotten better statistically. And that's been really important for him and for an offense that needs a good punter and also a good kicker.
Yeah, need to keep it up. It'd be nice to see his best punting effort of the season against the Browns and keep that young quarterback of theirs pinned up, because obviously the Steelers are facing a very good defense in the Browns, and field position probably going to play a huge part in this game. So if you can pin back that young quarterback and that offense a few times in this game, that could go a long way in helping you win this one.
Yeah, for sure. And now I know punters and specialists, what happens when the weather turns bad in December is kind of where they're really, their money is made. But I think it's been a good start overall for Harvin. And then for Chris Boswell, Danny Smith revealing they changed up his routine this year in an effort to keep him healthy. I think injuries have been the only issue throughout Bos's career. Talk about 2018 last year. His 2 down years have been, I think, very much injury related. And so he doesn't kick on Friday. He does not kick 48 hours prior to a game, and just kind of changing his routine to actually kick more to kind of keep his strength, but not kicking close to game time. So it's worked overall, and Boswell's having a great season.
Yeah, Boswell's having a really great season. He'd be perfect on field goals right now, if not for that.
The Jags game, yeah.
Yeah, the offsides, right?
Right. He hit that 56-yarder, got wiped out, and then missed from 61. So if your worst thing, if your only misses from 61 after you just made from 56, it's a really good year. But yeah, I think that still stings. That's your one blemish so far. But Pittsburgh needs him, and Boswell has been otherwise perfect.
And he's probably going to be a busy guy in this game against the Browns.
And we're not talking kickoffs. We're talking probably some field goals. Well, I guess then leads to kickoffs. But you get the point overall. Not a lot of touchdowns likely in this game. All right, Dave, anything from any players or any other coaches that you want to talk about from Pittsburgh this week?
I'm trying to think if anything stuck out since Wednesday.
Yeah, Kenny didn't say much whenever he spoke. I don't remember him saying anything too notable.
Yeah,
just that missed touchdown to Deontay. I mean, it sucks. It was there. I know quarterbacks don't always see things. I didn't take it as damning as maybe some other people did.
Yeah, look, Deontay adjusted and adjusted his route, and Kenny just said didn't see him, and Deontay said he didn't see him. So, just sometimes that's going to happen in the game. It would have been nice to have that one because Deontay was free and had the arm up and all like that. If Kenny could have got that away, but I mean, it happens. You just hate to see a guy that's struggling, pushing the football down the field, not be able to see something like that and hit it.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, Dave, anything else here? I think we probably covered the front half of the show pretty well.
Yeah, we can get to Scott, I think, right?
Okay, yep, we'll get to Scott Petrak. He covers the Cleveland Browns for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina Gazette. Also, check him out at brownzone.com. What is Scott's Twitter handle? I forgot to get that. I want to make sure that I have that as well. Let me pull that up. It's just Scott Petrak.
Yeah, Scott Petrak, Petrak.
So we'll take a pause and come back with Scott.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. It is week 11 of the NFL season. It is Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cleveland Browns on Sunday in Cleveland. And as usual, we'd like to be joined by a beat writer who covers the opposition. And as everybody probably guessed by now, that means our buddy Scott Petrak is back. Scott covers the Browns for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina Gazette. You can find all of his work along with his podcast at brownzone.com. And all of you should be following Scott on Twitter by now. If not, it's Scott Petrak, Petrak. We got a lot to talk about. Happy Friday, Scott. Welcome back to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Doing well. Busy Thursday night of AFC North action, and obviously a busy week this past week for you, Scott, with the news about Deshaun Watson being shut down for the season. A little bit surprising news on top of it. The team not going with PJ Walker at quarterback, going with DTR. Just kind of your overarching thoughts on that big news. I don't think a lot of people, when we knew Watson had that ankle issue coming out of that game, but a little bit of a surprise with the shoulder and all. Your thoughts on that and your thoughts on the decision to go with DTR instead of Walker?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you guys mentioned the AFC North, right? Like, you can't predict too far down the road, right? I mean, you just can't. Right? No. I mean, I left Baltimore thinking, the Browns have a really good chance to win the division, and now you have to recalibrate everything. I thought the Bengals are going to the playoffs. Now you got to recalibrate that. So it's just a crazy league, crazy season. When it comes to the Browns, nobody knew about the shoulder. Watson, I guess, complained of it at some point during the game. I don't know if he complained to the coach or the medical staff or just himself and knew that he wasn't, something was going on in there. Obviously finished the game with the shoulder and the high ankle sprain, 14 for 14 in the second half. And then we find out Wednesday morning that he's done for the year. They won't let him play through the broken bone in the shoulder, which seems to make sense, not to let the guy play through a broken bone in that throwing shoulder. So the Browns have to figure it out, right? And from a Browns fan perspective, he had just started to play well, right? Like he had three pretty good starts in a row. Great second half to beat the Ravens. The biggest Browns win, I would say, since 2020, probably since the playoff win in Pittsburgh in 2020. And you can't, if you're a Browns fan, they can't even enjoy it for 72 hours. Yeah. And you get the news that your expensive quarterback, who started to play well and hasn't been in the lineup much, right? He's only started 12 games since he's been here, will be done for the season. So it's a big blow. Big blow to the team, big blow to the fan base. And I think part of it, you say, well, he hasn't played great and the team has still won games, and that's true. So I think that gives the fan base optimism that they can still figure out a way to win. When you think long term, if he plays at a high level, then they have a chance to beat anybody, right? Because we've seen Watson play like a Pro Bowl when he was with the Texans. So it's not hard to imagine, okay, maybe he can compete with the Mahomes and the Burrows and the Jacksons, right? But now that he's not there, it's a huge unknown. DTR, the only time we've seen him was when he was awful against the Ravens on October 1st. Like, he was overmatched. Looked like he did not belong out there. A ton of bad decisions. Now, the Browns hope that the 6 weeks difference since then, he's really matured and he's learned a lot. He thinks he learned a lot from just being out in the field the one time. They also think that week was a weird week because everybody thought Watson was going to play. Watson thought he was going to play. So it's not like DTR prepared as a starter all week, and that changes, right? This week it changed. Tuesday he knew, and he got the game plan. He came in Wednesday, says he knew the game plan, knew all the long play calls. So it's going to be interesting to see if he really is night and day like he says he's going to be. And the fact that they went with him over PJ Walker is interesting. Walker was 2-1 in the games that he didn't start all of them, but he came off the bench in that Colts game. He was 2-1. He had a chance to be 3-0. He threw a bad interception late in that Seattle game. If not, they might win that game. They're leading with like 2 minutes left. But he was a turnover machine. He had 6 turnovers in 3 games. And I think the Browns thought, okay, that's not sustainable. They think DTR has a higher ceiling, right? They drafted DTR, and that's why they made the move. And I think they were leaning toward making that move after the Seahawks game, but then Watson came back. So it's not a stunner, but it is interesting.
Your thoughts on, obviously, a ways off before they have to make the decision. What's your thoughts on the Deshaun Watson situation, now, with him only playing the 12 games so far, and obviously you got the guaranteed money tied up with him. We've seen teams tear off the Band-Aid, even on some of these higher cap charges and guaranteed deals, and say, that's it, we're just done with it, we'll move on. This team has a lot of cap space, though, next season, though. Is this a situation where you think, okay, let's give it one more try in 2024 and hope that we get him through a season and get the guy that we signed up for? Or could you see them ripping the Band-Aid off? Or does the way DTR play in these final 8 weeks determine that?
Yeah, I don't have any inclination or any sense that the Browns are done with Watson. And I mean, they were so all in with this move that that'd be tough to sell, right? Okay, we're done with this guy. He just started to play well. It's not his fault his shoulder broke. I don't see it going that way. Now, your point at the end is interesting, right? Like if DTR plays great and leads them to the Super Bowl or something, then you have a different discussion. But let's assume that doesn't happen. The cap numbers, like, it's outrageous. Yeah. I don't know what it is. It's $100 million or something. Like, it's insane. They think he's going to be the guy. Like, I don't think they've changed their opinion that he can be the guy for the next, and it goes beyond the rest of the contract, right? Like, when they traded for him, the assumption was at some point he'd get a new contract, like he'd be here for a decade. Now, the guy needs to stay healthy. He needs to stay on the field. And that's another frustrating thing for the Browns. He didn't have an injury history, right? He tore his ACL as a rookie in 2017. He didn't miss a game for an injury after that. So, I think there's some bad luck there. Now it's not like he's old. He just turned 28. Right. So I think the hope is he comes back, he stays healthy, and he plays like the guy. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have some kind of contingency plan, but I just think all the factors, including the cap situation, that they're stuck with him.
No more questions, Your Honor, about what?
I got one more on DTR for you, Scott. I know you mentioned week 4, you summed up his play awful, but gave the caveat of the circumstances. Can you just kind of go into his performance in more detail against Baltimore and how this game plan might look and shift now that it's going from Watson to DTR? Sounds like the players are saying it's not going to change much because he's mobile, he's athletic. but what do you expect from this game plan?
Yeah, I think like that part won't change, right? I think the RPOs and the zone read stuff, I think that would look the same. What changes is there's probably a heavier emphasis on the run game. I would assume the Steelers load the box and make him throw, so it's not like you can. It's not like he can just not throw, right? At some point, he's gonna have to throw.
Right.
But I think they'll try to take as much pressure off him as possible, and they'll tell him don't turn the ball over, and punt's fine, and go win the game with the defense. Like, the Browns should have won Monday night in Pittsburgh, right? If they don't give up 14 points, their offense doesn't give Pittsburgh 14 points. Mm-hmm. So I think they think that'll be the recipe. Now, going back to the Ravens game, he threw 3 picks. Now, one was on the last play of the game, but still, he threw I think he threw 3 or 4 other balls that could have been intercepted. He had a play, and to me, this play stuck out the most. I think it was a scramble. He's running down the right sideline, like 15 yards down the field, and he tries to pitch to tight end Harrison Bryant. Right?
I saw that last night on the field.
To me, that was just a sign of this kid isn't ready, right? Like, his head's not working right. The decision making was awful. So that's what's going to have to be better. And he talked about it yesterday. It's all about making good decisions. And if I make good decisions, we'll win the game, and we'll leave the game with smiles on our faces, something along those lines. And I agree with that. Like, I think that's the reality, that if he makes good decisions, doesn't turn the ball over, I think the Browns win. But that's a big if, just given the one game we saw him play.
Sure. 2 more quick questions on that. A, could they use more empty? Because against the Ravens, they spread the field out a good bit and ran empty some, and that's always been a weapon, Cleveland's offense against Pittsburgh. And could there be any trickery in that game? They had that 3rd down, fake the tight end, sneak, pitch to DTR who threw it downfield. Could there be another layer like that, or do they want to be ultra conservative in this game?
That's a great question. I don't have a great answer for you, because I know from a fan perspective, just listening to the fans and some of the media, they thought the game plan was too aggressive with them last time. I also know that Kevin Stefanski is an aggressive-minded coach. Right. And I think part of, people, why are you throwing deep? Well, the reason is because you don't think you can put together a 10-play drive. So if you hit one big play, it flips the field. It gives you a chance to get quick points. So I do think they'll take some shots downfield. I wouldn't be stunned if there were a trick play or 2 in there. The empty thing is interesting, because I know the Browns like the empty because it identifies everything, right? It makes it easy on the quarterback. The problem with empty, it makes it hard to help your tackles, right? Like, maybe if you go empty, but you have the tight ends tight on the line, and they've done some of that, right? Where they have the tight end tight, or even the running back. They'll motion the running back to right on the edge so he can help chip at the line of scrimmage, because they're going to have to help against those tackles, right? So I don't think Stefanski's going to go ultra conservative, because that's not his style, but he might dial it back a little bit. Probably hedging there, but I kind of feel like that's the way to go.
Sure. And speaking of those tackles, Jedrick Wills out, Jack Conklin's out. What's the status on Dawan Jones if he can't go? How did Hudson do? How did Christian do? What's the outlook on the tackle situation?
Yeah, Jones returned to practice limited on Thursday, and he said it's just going to be all, does he feel like he can play at a high level, right? And if he does, he's going to be out there. My guess is we get a questionable today. They could rule him out if it doesn't go well. If he didn't respond well to yesterday or doesn't go well today. But let's say he's questionable. It'd be huge for them if they have Dawan Jones, because he's played at a relatively high level, especially in pass protection. And I didn't think, the week 2 against Pittsburgh was his first start, and I didn't think he was over his head at all. Like, I thought he did a pretty good job against TJ Watt. Wasn't great, but I thought he did pretty good, right? I've seen Browns tackles do way worse than TJ Watt. Right. So him over James Hudson III would be a big leap. We saw Hudson at the end of the 2021 game at week 17 in Pittsburgh. TJ had 4 sacks. Right. Hudson struggled last week against Clowney. Now, he wasn't awful. He's gotten better. Jones is just better than Hudson. And I think you're going to get Jerron Christian at left tackle either way. Like, I think they're going to stay there And if there's a thought that if Jones had been healthy last week, they could have gone Jones right side, Hudson left side. I think Christian played well against the Ravens. Not perfect. Gave up a strip sack late that the Browns were lucky to jump on. But I think it'll be Christian at left tackle. And he played a little bit against the Steelers early this season when he was with Houston. And then the hope is Jones on the right side. And if you have that, then maybe you only have to, you're going to have to help the tackles at some point. But maybe you don't have to help both tackles all the time.
Before we talk about that awesome Browns defense, what's the rest of the injury report likely to shake out? I think Marquise Goodwin. I know it was long. It looked like a CVS receipt there at the starting of the week, but it looks like it calmed down a little bit on Thursday. Other than, say, Jones, who else is in danger, maybe missing this game?
Yeah, it looks like Juan Thornhill, the safety, will be out. So it'll be Rodney McLeod. Marquise Goodwin looks like you can't tell by seeing how a guy gets hit with a concussion, but it was bad against Arizona. Got up really wobbly, hasn't been on the field since, so I assume he's out. So Goodwin and Thornhill, those are the two outs, and then Jones is the other one I would keep an eye on. I think everybody else is good to go.
All right, defensive side of football, man. Jim Schwartz has this unit playing well. Now I know against the Ravens they had a few issues there overall, but what all have you seen since the last time the Steelers played the Browns early in the season? Any new wrinkles or stuff? I mean, obviously they move Myles Garrett around. They like to use that sim pressure. Schwartz don't care what down it is. He'll send people. I've seen him a couple times, I think, send 2 DBs off the edge or something like that. Not afraid to drop Myles into coverage or have a defensive tackle kind of, I think, drop maybe even a couple of times. What have you seen as far as a maturation of this defense? And I mean, you look statistically across the board, this unit's great, right?
Oh, it is. And it hasn't been perfect. They gave up the late touchdown against Seattle. Now, it came after a pick, but Seattle still went 57 yards to win the game, right? And that's great. And some of the guys said it afterward. If you're the number one defense in the league, or I forget the sentence. It was either, hey, if we want to be number one or if we want to be best in the world, because that's a phrase they keep throwing out there, then you don't let up that winning touchdown. And that's legit. And they almost did the same thing against the Niners. They played great against the Niners, but they let up a field goal drive, but the kid misses a field goal at the end. And that's, the Browns escape with the win. So it hasn't been perfect, but if you take a step back, the numbers are great. They're leading the league, in yardage. They're leading the league in first downs, given up by a ton. They started to turn it over a little bit, which was missing early in the season. So they just have a bunch of pieces. You mentioned Myles Garrett. Darius Smith is playing well. He doesn't have crazy numbers, but he's getting into the backfield. Dalvin Tomlinson's playing really good in the middle. Jordan Elliott, their D tackle that's been here for 4 years, is finally playing at a high level, which he hadn't done in his first 3 years. Denzel Ward's playing great. Martin Emerson Jr. is playing really well. He struggled a little bit against the Ravens, but part of that was a matchup with Zay Flowers. It's a tough matchup for him. Grant Delpit's playing well, the safety. Like, they're just playing well. And Schwartz is calling a good game. He's got attacking. He's got freedom because he trusts the back end to cover. So he's bringing Greg Newsome out of the slot. He's bringing Grant Delpit out of the slot. So, and I think that they have, I don't want to say turn a corner, but Schwartz talked yesterday about feeling the tenacity be at a different level in the fourth quarter of that Ravens game. And the Browns went out there, the defense went out there, and they got the pick six by Newsome, and then they got to stop to give them a chance to go win the game. And they almost got to stop after a muff punt at the 12-yard line. It took 2 third down penalties to keep that short drive going. So he said the defense took it to another level. He felt it in his soul. He thinks they're still trying to make up for that game, for the ending against Seattle. And I just feel like with the Watson situation, this defense is going to take off even more. And I think you're going to see a really good outing on Sunday.
according to the tape, at least it looked like if you're going to try to run on this defense, offenses need to run to their right side, which would be to the Browns' left side of their defense. Is that probably where the Steelers are going to have to try to find success at on their right side? And the second thing that stuck out, while not awful, I think they're in the top third down and 5 to 9 yards or more. The Browns have allowed a conversion percentage of 35.6, and I think there's only like 12 teams that have allowed a higher percentage of that. Basically right in the middle of the NFL, which isn't awful, but it did stick out. Now the Steelers are struggling on third downs, especially same situation, third and 5 to 9 to 10 yards. They just are failing to convert. But what are your thoughts on those 2 points?
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're talking about going kind of at Zadarius Smith at the left end spot, right? Away from Myles Garrett.
Correct.
Yeah, I could see it because Myles is playing at such a level that it's obviously, I don't think anybody's having success going right at Myles. But I think Smith's been good. Now you can do a little with the misdirection and bootlegs. Smith, it feels like he's a half step on some of those plays where he kind of, takes the bait. And then you can see him chasing. He's chasing hard, but hasn't gotten caught up to the guy. And sometimes it'll be Obo Okoronkwo out there, and he's lighter than those two other guys. So I could see that, but I don't think they've been bad in that way, in that area. It's probably a difference from going toward Myles. And I remember some of the Ravens, the first game against the Ravens had some success running that way, but I think they've cleaned that up. And then the third down stat's interesting because they're really good on third down. I think they're leading the league overall on third down. But they try to get you in third and a ton, right? And they try to create negative plays early. And if you don't, then you can get in that spot. It might be skewed by some third down penalties against Baltimore that kept them on the field. But really, there's a couple big plays they've given up in a couple fourth quarter drives and a couple of first quarter drives. So there was a period where they gave up first possession touchdowns on 3 straight games. Other than that, the defense has been unbelievable.
Scott, my last question for you, then I'll have Dave finish things out. And it's a big kind of weighty question that might be hard to think about in the middle of the season and off the Watson news. But how does this Browns team get evaluated? You go from the Baker is hurt season to the Watson is suspended season to now the Watson is hurt season. How do you make of where this team is headed, what expectations should be? It just feels like every year has a big asterisk to it, and you just can't make a determination on what this franchise is or is not.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Because going into this week, you probably thought, man, this team's going to the playoffs, right?
I did, and I think they still will, but I think it's a lot harder. I was convinced they're going to the playoffs, right? And I thought they might win the division, and I thought they might make a run. I know it was only one game in Baltimore, but it felt like everything had been building, and we talked about Watson had been playing better. So, yes, that's how I was feeling Monday. I think from a big picture perspective, I think it's good from a longevity coach GM standpoint. If you're Andrew Berry, you go to the owner because they're in the 4th year of 5-year contracts. So this is a big year for them. And we probably talked about that the first time. Right. So I think you go in and you say, hey, we're 6-3. We look like we're going to the playoffs. I don't care how everything goes, right? I think you can make that argument. Now, I do think that the last 8 games matter. But if they go to the playoffs with, Watson missing as many games as he missed, I think that's a good sign for continuity. I would certainly expect everybody to come back. Now, if you're talking about long-term, are they going to be a Super Bowl contender? It's all going to come back to the quarterback, right? So, I think they're in a good spot, but your point's well taken that there is plenty of uncertainty just because the quarterback situation, I guess you can say, remains unanswered. Mm-hmm. Even if they might think it is answered. You know what I mean?
Before I get kind of your prediction on this one, who is this a bigger game for, the Browns or the Steelers? It's really I guess, a trick question. There's no right answer, but who is this a bigger game for in Cleveland on Sunday? And second, what do you think about the Steelers and this sustainable, unsustainable thing that they got going on right now.
Yeah, I'll answer that part first. It certainly feels unsustainable. Now, I don't watch them like you guys do. I went back and watched the Packers game, and you see good things, right? You see Pickens making some catches. You see the running backs running. We know what that defense does. But when you rely so heavily on turnovers, right? Creating turnovers, that's tough, right? Because you can't necessarily count on those. We know the rules about if you're outgained, if you're outscored, right? Point differential, like that's a legitimate sign, right? That's not the exact word I'm looking for, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Right.
Like that's a telltale to an indicator of how good you are as a team. So I don't know if Pittsburgh can sustain it. And when I say that, I mean, like, can they make a Super Bowl run? Yeah, they can win 4 more games to get to the playoffs, right? Like that's not ludicrous. I think your quarterback needs to play better, right? Like it's hard. Like that feels unsustainable to keep winning games when your quarterback's not playing at a high level. So yeah, it feels a little smoke and mirror-y to me. But when I look at some of the talent, it feels less that way. When you look at Watt and Highsmith and Hayward and Pickens and Johnson and Najee and Moore, like all of a sudden it's like, well, there's a bunch of guys there, right? So I might be speaking out on both sides of my mouth, but I see why they're winning, but I also think, man, they shouldn't win as many games as they've won, right?
Right.
And then to go to your first question, I think it's a bigger game for the Browns. You can't be swept by the Steelers, and I think you have to maintain the momentum. And it's going to be hard to get 4 wins, right, the rest of the year. And the schedule's not that hard. The Browns' schedule's not that hard. But they're not going to be a big unless DTR turns into, Kurt Warner, they're not going to be a big favorite in any of these games coming up. Each one, they're going to have to play well. The defense is going to have to play great. So it's going to be a slog. So you need to get all the wins you can. This feels like a winnable game to me. I think you want to kind of restore the confidence of your team and your fan base after Watson. And if you go and beat the rival at home, then you beat Baltimore and Pittsburgh back-to-back, even if you don't have your quarterback, I think that says, hey, okay, we can stabilize, we can move forward. If somehow, if they lost to the Steelers, especially if they got blown out by the Steelers, then I think there's a chance there's a crisis of confidence. So I think it's huge for the Browns.
All right. Speaking of slogs, is this going to be 15-13 on Sunday in Cleveland? Whoever has the biggest turnover in the game gonna win this? They're gonna just play punt and swap the ball between the 40s. How do you see this one going? And feel free to throw out a final score, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on all those. Right, I think it's going to be low scoring. We saw the over/under was 33, right? It's pretty low.
Right.
I do think it's going to be slog. I think it's going to be a field position game. I think it's a don't turn the ball over game. All those things you described. I just don't think. I don't know how you play any other way with those two quarterbacks, right? So yeah, that's what I predict. I think the Browns' defense is better overall than the Steelers' defense. The Browns' defense is pretty healthy. You guys got some linebacker issues. I hate picking really low scores because it's a crazy league, and I picked low scoring in Indianapolis, and it wound up being 39-38. Having said that, I'm picking a low score. I'm going to go Browns 17-14.
All right, fair enough. Scott, look, who knows? Maybe we'll do this again here at the end of the season, and both these teams can get in. Obviously, a lot happened in the AFC North Thursday night with the Ravens losing Mark Andrews, and obviously we all wait to see what happened with Joe Burrow and how that's that loss really hurts them on top of it there. All right, until next time, Scott, we appreciate your time. And as always, thanks for joining Dave and Alex on the Terrible Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Scott Petrak, who covers the Browns for the Chronicle Telegram and Medina Gazette, also brownzone.com. Follow him on Twitter at Scott Petrak. That's Petrak. And Dave, always a great guest with valuable information to provide on the Browns. Yeah,
he was pretty intense in certain, aspects of that, very in tune, obviously, with the team that he covers there. And it felt like he's it felt like he was kind of disappointed because thinking that this is a Browns team, starting this week, that, man, if they could beat the Steelers and Deshaun Watson's playing well, I think Scott maybe had visions of he'll probably still end up out in Vegas anyway, covering the Super Bowl. But I think he knows the seriousness of this injury with Watson now, and how the Browns team more than ever is going to have to rely on their defense. And even though we've seen what happened Thursday night in the AFC North there, and I think he was right to say, look, this is a big game for both these teams. When you look at what a win can do for both these teams' playoff chances, I think the Steelers' playoff chances go up to mathematically something like 79%. And I think the Browns goes maybe even a little bit higher than that. I can't remember what I saw on the graphic on that one there, but this is I agree, and Steeler fans probably aren't going to like this, but I do think that this is a bigger game for the Browns than it is the Steelers on Sunday now.
That's probably fair. I mean, it's obviously a big game for both teams. What the graphic was, if Pittsburgh wins, if you're into the numbers, that their playoff odds sit at 79%. If they lose, their odds drop to 46%. So that's a crazy swing there. Either way, let's just say neither team wants to lose this game.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's talk about the Browns, you and I, and our kind of preview of this game. We'll start with that Browns offense. And again, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the rookie 5th-round pick out of UCLA, making his second career start. But there's a key difference in this start compared to the previous one, because again, in that week 4 game, it was an emergency thing, really no time to prepare. He did get reps that week, I guess, because Watson wasn't really practicing that week, I guess, leading up to week 4. But still, this time, he's the guy. The game plan is really specifically being built around you, and there is just some more comfort your second time out. So when you look at this Browns offense, we know they're going to want to run the football. What do you expect beyond that from this Browns offense?
First and foremost, do you think they're making the right decision between Walker and DTR? I'm a bit surprised.
I'm a little bit as well. Not that I've watched either guy in depth. I mean, DTR was the number 2 quarterback to begin the year. He's the reason why Dobbs got dealt to Arizona. He had a really good summer and training camp and preseason performances. I just think they looked at Walker and said, we know this. We know who this guy is. We know he's going to struggle, going to turn the ball over. We can't risk that. DTR has the same issue, but maybe you can get some more big plays out of him. And there was a reason why they went to Thompson-Robinson as the backup to start the year. So I guess that's their calculation. But I think it was a bad hand no matter which card they decided to play.
All right. We talked about the tackles for them and how important. Look, schematically, you're still going to see them pull the guards and those kind of things there. They are going to come out, I think, and try to run the football down the Steelers' throat, and probably with a lot of that interior runs. Now, Ford, when you talk about a running back like Jerome Ford, he can get out on the edge. Both those guys, Kareem Hunt, obviously can factor into the passing game if they need it. They like to do some things with multiple tight ends on the field. You'll see them try to run some quick stuff to Njoku. I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make Njoku kind of more of a focal point in some of these short over the middle sit downs against zone, with some of those kind of return kind of pivot routes. I think that's one thing that stuck out when you go back and watch the tape with Cleveland and Baltimore earlier in the year. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Marquise Goodwin, because to not have a guy that can go vertically like that, if they don't have him, that could impact this game. Although Elijah Moore was a guy that I remember going into that game last time saying, man, who's that number 8? You know what? A weird number 8, out on the field there. So accuracy seems to be an issue with Dorian Thompson-Robinson so far. The deep ball in the limited amount of snaps that he's gotten is an issue, and just third down overall. I mean, him and Kenny Pickett, and once again, we're talking about a much smaller sample size when it comes to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. You don't want to be in third and long situations anytime. But this is a guy that you really don't want in third and long situations. And I imagine they're telling some of his decision making wasn't great in that game against the Ravens. He had a couple of interceptions in that game. And as Scott said, there could have been 3 or 4 more in that game as well too. And just his accuracy overall. So I would expect them to try to heavy dose of the run and establish that run game. Tell him, don't turn the football over. Whatever you do, don't turn the football over, and hope that this is a close game. He is a guy that will take off and run with the football, and that's not that Deshaun Watson wasn't, but you better make sure that you have your face toward him in some of these escape situations. They're probably telling him, don't be afraid to take off with the football if you don't see the first or second read there. So that is a big concern because the kid is very athletic. He can go 70 on you, you know?
He ran, I think, 4.52, 4.56 at the combine?
Right. So you really have to be cognizant of him taking off with football. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do some zone read stuff in this game to try to keep the Steelers edge guys honest in this. But I would think that, they're going to try to use the tight ends in the passing game, in the short game here, probably dump off to the running backs quite a bit in this game. And then all that being surrounded the run game.
No, I think you summed it up really well, Dave. I think they're going to lean on his strengths, and that's his mobility and his ability to kind of create and, frustrate you when you got things plugged up on 3rd and 7. He takes off and gets 8 yards, probably some designed run game, especially near red zone, goal line type stuff, quarterback power they would run with Watson, probably keep that with ETR, some read option as you referenced as well. And while his numbers were poor against Baltimore in week 4, the top receiver for Cleveland that day was Njoku, had 6 catches on 7 targets, and Cooper only had 1 catch that day. So I think they're going to lean on Njoku quite a bit. And then to my point earlier, I think they're going to see some empty in this game. You're going to see them come out in 12 personnel, heavy, keep Pittsburgh in their base defense, and then spread things out and try to get Cooper as number 3 inside over the middle, maybe on a linebacker with Pittsburgh's linebacker situation in flux right now, and Njoku over the middle. So I saw that against Baltimore. I don't think Cleveland's going to be as conservative as maybe some people are thinking. I think to Scott's point, they're going to run some play action. They're going to take some deep shots. They may bust out a trick play or two. They did that against Baltimore as well. So they're going to run the ball a lot, and obviously they need to protect the football. But I think they're going to be selective, and they're going to take some shots in this game.
They'll put him in pistol. They put him in pistol against the Ravens. They'll put him up underneath center a little bit as well too. I envision to get him settled into this game at home, big AFC North game, blah blah blah. I think you're going to see some RPOs in that script. To start off with, just very easy, count the box. If this, then that. I think you could, as obviously as part of RPOs, I think you could, if they get the numbers on the outside, see a couple of quick wide receiver screens. I think within that script, though, I think you're going to see some RPOs, obviously some heavy runs to kind of get him settled into the game first and foremost with him. That's what I'm expecting with him. I am worried about his legs a little bit. Look, even though they don't have they're probably not going to have. We'll obviously see what happens with Dawan Jones, but the interior of their line is really, really good. So they can still pull those guards and do some of the things that they want to do in the running game. As far as if they try to do any of that read option stuff like that, some mesh charge should settle that down. I want him to know that those edges aren't afraid to hit him early.
Yeah, they haven't used the mesh charge too much lately. I don't know what their plan is in this game. They're not. I really don't know what the plan's going to be. I think maybe less mesh charge, or maybe just more, slant and scrape, or something a bit more conservative.
You need to let this guy know that you're in the game early. You need to bouncing him around early in this one could have an impact on him.
Sure, and hopefully, I think the best way to do that is by bottling up that run game, putting them in those 3rd and long situations, and making him drop back. I think you're going to see a lot of play action, a lot of bootlegs early, change the launch point. I think you look at the Houston model and say, what did Houston do well? They used the screen game. They ran the ball well. They stayed on script. And those things are obvious, and every team's really trying to accomplish that. But when you got a rookie quarterback with backup tackles, you can't just sit there into your 3-step and 5-step and 7-step game. You got to really change the launch point and make those edge guys run and get those guys tired out a little bit. So I think they're going to mix all those things in, or at least try to, early in this game.
And if you look back at that game that he played against the Ravens 75% zone in that game. And while they gave up some plays, Baltimore was almost like he's going to make the mistake.
Yeah.
And if we can, obviously explosive plays are huge and they're going to play a huge part in this game for sure. But if you can limit the explosive plays and constantly put this Browns offense in situations where they have to drive long fields and put together 10 or 11 play drives, it's almost like the Ravens kind of thought he's probably going to make a mistake, and he made quite a few of them in that game. He got away with quite a few of them as well too. But this goes back to what we even said earlier in the week there. Expect the Steelers to play a lot of zone in this game. Make sure you're tackling the catch, because we all know what Amari Cooper can do. Elijah Moore's good after the catch. We'll see what happens with Marquise Goodwin. Don't let this guy uncork one up over your head for an easy 60-yard touchdown, whatnot. Don't let Jerome Ford have, what we saw in that Packers game, have a 40-yard long run. Keep everything in front of you in this game if you're the Steelers defense. If you can keep everything in front of you, make him drive the long fields, make him get into some of these third and long situations, that's when you're more apt to make him make a mistake.
But the one difficulty in that is because you're trying to really sell out hard to stop the run. I assume this team's going to pack the box. They're going to play 8-man boxes, bring the strong safety down, and try to take away that run game. That's going to isolate some of those DBs in the back end, your corners, and put a lot on your free safety. And we assume that Minkah Fitzpatrick's not going to play in this game. So there's a line between you want to sell out, stop the run, make DTR beat you, but also you're worried about the play action game and the deep ball and him hitting a chunk play that may change the tide of a game or put them in field goal range or set up a touchdown and probably will be a low scoring game. So, with young DBs and a secondary that's hurt, not playing incredibly well, there's some concern there.
If I'm the Steelers, I want to come out of this game if I lose and say, damn, that Dorian Thompson-Robinson did it with his arm.
Right. But it might be of the one play, big play variety.
Right.
And just taking a shot, because they got Cooper who can make some plays. You get
sure.
1v1 matchup, put it up there. Doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. So, but yeah, I think overall still the game plan has to be, let's keep it simple. Let's play the run. And as you said, wait and let DTR make the mistake.
Right. And then you got to capitalize on those. Look, I think Njoku's set up to have, and he's done it to the Steelers, I think, a couple of times. 8 catches, 70, 80 yards, and probably look to him in the red zone and all like that. I'm okay with him having 7, 8 catches for 50, 60, 70 yards. Keep as long as one of those don't come in the red zone or anything like that there. But much like the Packers, Packers had 8 explosive plays in that game.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them were coverage issues and just miscommunication on Pittsburgh's end.
Right. That's one way that you can die a slow death in this one for sure. Because look, I know the Steelers, it's been a sustainable, unsustainable, but how many games can you go where you give up 8 explosive plays and not get a turnover or two and wind up winning the game? So stop the run, tackle the catch, make him drive long fields, and hope that the young quarterback makes a mistake here.
Well said, Dave.
Or two.
All right, the Browns defense, a much tougher nut to crack here. It's a really elite defense that's healthy overall. They're good at all 3 levels, whether you're talking about the D-line at Garrett and Smith and Tomlinson having a big impact against the run, GOK at off-ball linebacker, most athletic off-ball linebacker in football likely, and then a really strong cornerback room, Ward and Newsome and Emerson, with some solid safety play as well, led by Grant Delpit. So trying to find the weakness in this defense is tough to do.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I talked to Scott. I think if you're going to try to run in this, run against this defense, looking at the Steelers side of the ball, I think where the success can be had is on the right side there. Broderick Jones is doing a good job of getting up off the ball and out into space. I don't think you're going to see the the second level kind of work from the interior guys that you got to see against the Packers, because I think the Browns are much better up front interior, and I think their linebackers obviously are better as well too there. But I think you need to try to pound and pull those guards and try to get the run game established to the right side of the Steelers offense. I think that's where you can make some hay that way. What really concerns me the most about this game from the Steelers offensively, and it's not a surprise, it's the third down type situation here, and throw out, get past the not using the middle of the field stuff. Look, Kenny Pickett, completion percentage wise, has been very good on first down. Now let's drill that down real quick. Why is that? Because he has one of the lowest depth of target stats in the league on first down. So yeah, if you're only throwing the football 6 yards past the line of scrimmage, you would hope that you're completing a lot of those passes, right? So first down completion percentage is not bad at all for Kenny Pickett. Second down's not bad for Kenny Pickett overall. But once again, you're not pushing the football down the field a lot in those situations. What really sticks out like a sore thumb for Kenny Pickett is the third down completion percentage for him overall, and especially when you get in third and five or more yard situations there. And even though I pointed out that stat to Scott about the Browns in 3rd and 5 to 9 yards, they're still just slightly on the bad side of half point in the league. So it's not glaring overall, especially and look, that might be skewed. I didn't go individually and look at some big plays that maybe they've given up in some of those situations. Let me read these off to you, Alex. 71 completion percentage for Kenny Pickett on first down. 64. And when you look at this league wide, it's not like it's astronomically great, but it's, it's not bad. But once again, I think if you drill down into the depth of target and all like that, you see probably why he's better in those areas. When you get 64% on second down, third down, 48.2%. That's near the bottom of the league right at the bottom of the league when you talk about qualified quarterbacks. When you look at third down in 5 or more, it dips down to 46.7% completion percentage there. So third downs are going to be huge. Well, they're huge in any game, obviously. But if you want to talk about one area where the Steelers passing game needs to improve on in the second half of the season, and yeah, I get the whole middle of the field stuff. I'm not holding my breath on a lot of that stuff there. But, man, if Kenny Pickett could get 55 to 58% completion percentage on third downs starting Sunday against the Browns, and not only that, those third downs convert, that would be a huge step forward for Kenny Pickett in this passing game. And it's going to be tough to do against this Browns defense.
It is. Overall, the number one third down defense in football. I guess the question with Pickett is, why does it dip so much? Is there a common theme? They're not, and I have to check the numbers, but they're not like in third and forever. They don't have the longest, yards to go on third down.
One thing that sticks out with that is his average depth of target is down the field a little ways here. So in these situations, is he trying to work too far past the chains?
It's hard to say. I'd have to do a deep study on that. He certainly is not afraid to take that deep shot. There was a 3rd and 3 play, I think, against the Packers on that first drive where he took that deep shot. They got the penalty on it, but whenever he sees 1v1 on the outside, a clean picture, he's going to take that shot to Johnson or Pickens. So I really don't know the answer to that other than obviously just has to improve.
Yeah, I mean that's what it boils down to. And look, I think he's had some obviously some pressure that's impacted that. And look, Jim Schwartz don't feel sorry for nobody.
And vice versa.
If they get Kenny in third and long situations, they're going to make him think. whether it be, because look, nothing has changed when you go and look at them defensively on film overall from the last time these two teams play. They're going to move Myles Garrett around. They're going to have those linebackers mug the A gap. Sometimes they're going to come, sometimes they're not. I have a feeling you might see them come more in this game, to be honest with you. At home, try to make Pickett get rid of that football and make they want to sit back and make Kenny make some of the mistakes that the Steelers are hoping DTR is going to make, I think.
I do think they're going to blitz, not going to necessarily just sit back and let him make the mistake. They're going to attack and try to create the mistake.
I think they are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, because they know more than ever this defense needs not just stops and to limit the number of points. They need turnovers. They need to create short fields for their offense. They need to limit possessions. So they're again, it's like 2019 Pittsburgh defense, good defense, and knows they have to be even better without their starting quarterback. So yeah, I think they're going to be aggressive. They're going to pressure. They're going to put Delpit in the box. He lives in the box. That's why he leads the team in tackles. And both teams have the same game plan of stop the run, make the quarterback beat you, get pressure, take the football away. Whoever does that more effectively is going to likely be the victor of this game. So yeah, they got trust in their corners to play 1v1 on the outside. I think Pickett's going to take some shots on the outside. Hope his receivers can make some plays. It may come down to those downfield battles between Newsome and Johnson and Ward and Pickens, etc., to see who decides this one.
I think what you're going to see from Schwartz in this one too, you obviously teams look at their tendencies and all like that. It's hard to kind of peg tendencies on this defense anyway, as it is. I think Jim Schwartz is just going to throw I think he's just going to spin the dial. I think he has that much trust in his defense where every call is going to be spin the wheel. What does it land on? That's what we're going to go with. Down, distance, be damned. I don't think he wants he's going to put Kenny Pickett in as many uncomfortable situations guessing versus what he has seen on tape in this game. I have a feeling.
Sure, and that's why the run game is so critical.
They call that a Rolodex defense, even though there's no such thing as a Rolodex anymore. I really think that you're going to see some unique pressures and sins and a lot of different things in this game from this defense.
Sure. They're going to bring the nickel from the field side. They're going to bring the safety from the boundary side. That's kind of their personality. They're a pretty heavy blitz team overall. But again, they know how Pittsburgh has won. They run for $166 against Tennessee, run for $205 against Green Bay. Their goal is to not let that become 3 games in a row and see what Pickett can do. And again, I think it's going to be about Pickett taking those shots on the outside, 3rd and 5. It's whenever you see a lot of single high, cover 1 predominantly from Cleveland. And so that's going to lend itself to the back shoulder throw and the deep ball and just trying to win 1v1 on the outside.
If you're playing along in the home version of the Terrible Podcast on Sunday, listeners, grab you a pen and paper and focus in on third downs, distance, personnel groupings, and then where he's going with the football in those situations, because I think third downs, if look, in the second half against the Packers, they weren't great other than we've highlighted that other than the Kenny Pickett scramble there. How Kenny Pickett plays on third down and what he's able to get done on third downs in this game might be the biggest talking point, I think, to come out of it. So, try if you're at home to try to pay close attention. Are they in a lot of third and long situations? Right. Where are they going in these third and long situations? Look, and I even said of 5 or more yards, 46.7%. How many 3rd and 5 and 3rd and 6 situations can the Steelers get in this game? And what does Kenny Pickett do on those? I mean, it's a lot. It's going to be super tough if you're 3rd, 7, 8, 9, 11 in this game as it is. But can the Steelers offense get these 3rd and 4, 5, 6 situations? And what does Kenny, can they convert on these? Because once again, I think overall, moving into the second half of this season, how Kenny Pickett plays on third downs is going to be a huge factor in this, especially, hopefully they get into playoffs and all like that. So watch that. And I wonder if we're talking a lot about Kenny Pickett and third down play on Monday, Alex.
I agree, but to your point, the question is not just how does Kenny Pickett play on third downs, it's what third downs is Kenny Pickett playing in. 3rd and 8 versus 3rd and 3 is a world of difference against this Browns defense. When it's 3rd and 3, the ball comes out on time. It's more rhythmic passing game, more options, shorter drops. The Browns can't do their chaotic type looks quite as effectively or quite as confidently as they can on 3rd and 8 plus. So, that question comes down to how well can you run the football? And failing that, can you scheme up, boots in the flat that have been effective on opening scripts the last 2 weeks? And can you have more rhythmic passing game that gets you 5 yards on 1st and 10 to get you in a rhythm, keep you on schedule? So if the running game is faltering, can they adjust and can they find some quick pass game, maybe some RPOs that weren't quite there against Green Bay, that were more prevalent against Tennessee? Some that's dependent on just how the defensive structure looks. So the question is about how Kenny Pickett plays on third down, but what happens on 1st and 2nd down to get into third down, and what down and distance is that? It's going to determine a lot about how Pickett is going to play.
Yeah, look, you got to, and once again, you got to run. This team's been running good the last couple of weeks. I think they can have some success to the right side of their offense there. But yeah, I mean, right down. It's going to be interesting to see. Are we talking about a lot of 3rd and 4s or 3rd and 5? You don't want to be in any third downs if you can help it. But I mean, the ones that you get in this game, what are they situationally, and how is he doing in those more manageable situations? Because look, he's not going to want to hold the football very long in any situation in this game, the way that defense is playing. And Schwartz is probably not going to let him hold it in any situation overall. So, man, it'd be great to work the middle of the field of some of these of this quick game, I mean, we know he's going to throw to the outside anyway with some of these back shoulders and comebacks and curls like that. They're going to need their yak to be very, very good in this game because of a lot of the short passing game. He needs to discover that he can check this ball down more often to guys like Warren. And look, you hopefully going to have Pat Freiermuth back in this game too. So is that how can Pat Freiermuth play into this third down situation?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, JOK is going to be a tough matchup if they're going to run a lot of single high and middle of the field closed. It may be tougher, but not impossible. How does Freiermuth block? That's a big issue. Talk about run game. How do you scheme that up? He's had issues this year. I mean, they've been doing it with kind of a lot of Connor Hayward too. So there's ways to mask that, but you need that guy to be a key part of your run game, or trying to find ways to hide and minimize the limitations he has as a run blocker. Do you see more Darnell Washington in this game? Do you see maybe a 6th offensive lineman in this game? Do you do some things like that? We'll have to see. I think if you're Cleveland, you're going to run your personality, but if a lot of zone blitzes, I think would work well against Kenny Pickett. I think he just does not see zone as cleanly as he does man. That's why he likes the 1v1 shots to the outside. It's a cleaner picture, easier read. Just go out there and make the throw. So the zone blitzes to really confuse. It was that interception in that week 2 game where that safety kind of dropped off and let the other guy go inside to pick off Pickett earlier in that one. Just Pickett never saw it. And so you got to really try to mess with his eyes. And I think zone coverage will present that opportunity.
And then obviously you can't have Myles Garrett have a Myles Garrett game. Now he did well in the win component of it, individual win component of it the last time these two teams met, but he didn't show up in the big plays and all. So look, he's going to have a nice win percentage probably again in this game, but you just can't let him make those game wrecking plays that TJ Watt makes,
Right. And to Pittsburgh's credit, they do a really good job schematically and conceptually of not letting those star defensive players write the headlines. They make plays and they get theirs, Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, etc., but they don't change the course of the game. They don't become the reason why the game is lost on Pittsburgh's end. Now, I know some people will say, well, Dan Moore does a great job against Myles Garrett. He doesn't. He really struggles, but understandably so. It's Myles Garrett, but schematically they pair whenever he's on the field on the occasion where it's 1v1, Moore versus Garrett, that ball's coming out quick. That is the design. And talk about the touchdown to George Pickens that came with Garrett off the field. There was more time to let that route develop. And so I think Pittsburgh's able to pair their protection and their calls and the quarterback drop with what they're doing with Garrett, so he can win and beat the block, but not ultimately get to the quarterback. And they do that really well, and that'll be required again on Sunday.
I would like to see this offense come out and kind of attack the way they did what game was it? The Jaguars. If they get the right look and unfortunately didn't connect with Deontay early on that, but I wouldn't be opposed to sending some sort of message early in this game that we're not afraid to take shots down the field. And even though we're probably not going to throw to the middle of the field a lot in this game, we're going to open up, making you at least consider it.
Yeah, I think
Freiermuth maybe down the seam or something, or a repeat of kind of one of those divide concepts or something. If you get the right look, try to put somebody in a conflict where you can get one, 18 yards past the line of scrimmage in the air down the middle of the field, something like that. I don't want them to I don't want the Browns defense to come out and say, look, they're going to be conservative again. They're not going to take the handcuffs off Kenny, much of any, unless they get this game to the fourth quarter or anything like that. We got to make sure that we don't let Najee and Jaylen Warren run for $150 or more against us. We're going to, if they want to come out and stack the Bucs early, throw on them early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this game comes down to who makes the play on offense. Like, we know this game's going to be defensively driven, but somebody's going to have to make a play on offense at some point, whether that's just a play in your 4-minute offense to seal the game on third down or get you in field goal range, or that one chunk play, the way that Pittsburgh got one chunk play on that Pickens 71-yard touchdown in week 2. And that's probably going to be, whether it's Pickett winning on the outside against a cover one look and throwing deep to Johnson or Pickens, or whether it's the Browns and Thompson-Robinson off of play action, hitting Cooper deep. Like, who's going to make that vertical play on the outside, I think determines who actually wins this game.
Yeah, feels like you might need a 50-yarder in this game.
Yeah, because neither offense is going to go like 12 plays, crisp, efficient, just not against these defenses, not with the way their offenses are built and what they're dealing with. Like, it's going to come down to who gets a chunk. What's the old Mike Tomlin phrase from last year? Chunk plays solve a lot of game planning, or, right, whatever the quote there is. And so that's how this one's going to go offensively.
And look, for the first time since the second play of the second half against the 49ers, you're going to have a full, you're going to have your offense out there.
Yeah, I'm going to put together the stat, assuming that Freiermuth does get activated. It's probably been how many snaps have Johnson and Pickens and Freiermuth all been on the field together this year?
24,
25?
23, 24?
Did you look that up, or you just kind of?
No, I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds right. Yeah, it's not many, and so to have that is going to be a benefit. There's no question about that.
Let's see how because Uncle Dave's starting to lose it in some facets. Here.
Not this one. I think when it comes to obscure snap count numbers, I think you probably still got your fastball.
Let's see. How many plays did they play in the first half against the 49ers? It was 27
total plays from the offense, you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Now,
we don't know if they were all together.
Right. You have to imagine 3 or 4 of them, they were off, not all on the field.
Right.
And Deontay left.
And that first drive, I believe, in the second half.
It was the
early third quarter.
Yeah, early third quarter. Let me find out specifically. It was the first play of the third quarter on offense. Right.
I don't know if Freiermuth and Pickens were on the field together. Maybe they were, but either way, we're talking at most, 25, 26 snaps together.
Right.
So, yeah, that'll be, hopefully Freiermuth comes back. It sounds like he will. I don't know how involved he'll be, but maybe if he just makes that one crucial catch on third down late in game, or that touchdown in the red zone, does have 2 touchdowns on 8 grabs this year, that can be the difference.
It's got me thinking to kind of keep talking here.
And then special teams, I mean, that's going to be important. Boswell might be your best offensive weapon in this game, and Harvard might not be too far behind in terms of field position, a very kind of feel like against Tennessee, where you're facing a young rookie quarterback. Can you win field position and kind of have that battle won? And that's going to be really important. So those things are obviously going to be, I think, critical as well in this game.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort this to see. Let's see, Deontay and Freiermuth. Let's see, there's 8 plays. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and count it up, but it's right around 25 plays. Those everybody was on the field together.
Yeah. So any other thoughts here? Any other keys or coaching points, talking points for this one, Dave?
Man, don't turn another game of no turnovers for the Steelers would play out huge in this. Look, I don't think you're going to see a weird talk stat win in this one. I don't know. I've been wrong before several times this year. And that talk stat is taking a beating this year because of the Steelers. Mm-hmm. But if you're +2 in the talk stat turnovers and explosive play in this game, you should win this game. If it's an even talks game, my money would be on the Steelers to win this, because of fourth quarter Kenny, I think, can make a difference. But if you lose this talks game by 1 or 2, if you're the Steelers, I think you lose the game.
Yeah, and both teams take away the football. Pittsburgh has 18, Cleveland has 15. The difference is the Browns have turned the ball over 19 times this season. That's the most in football, and Pittsburgh takes care of the ball about as well as any unit in the NFL. And so that may be the difference in this one, just based on what the trends are coming into this game.
A lot of punts in this one.
Yep, a lot of punts. All right, Dave. I think we covered this game pretty well. Before we make our picks for the Steelers-Browns game this Sunday, and before we make our picks for the rest of week number 11, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie. And I think I am, 1-0 on the week, and I think you're taking. But of course, you could predict the Burrow situation. That threw a curveball and everything on Thursday night.
All right, NFL Week 11, Alex. If you found a $100 bill on the ground, and you definitely wouldn't walk past it, so why are you passing up on cashing winners every weekend? MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests to fill all your sports betting needs, anytime, anywhere, so you can turn that sports knowledge into cash in your own wallet. Bet on the NFL, NHL, or play for a share of big cash prizes in the weekly blackjack tournaments that they have online. If you've been waiting for the right time to get in on the action, that time is right now. Make your winning move today. Sign up at MyBookie. Use our promo code TERRIBLE and claim your deposit match, redeemable up to $1,000. Again, that's promo code TERRIBLE to claim your bonus. Experience the thrill of sports betting right from the comfort of your own home. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie, and to get there, mybookie.ag, and please use promo code TERRIBLE.
All right, Dave, let's make our picks for week number 11.
All right, and once again, I enter the weekend 0-1. You enter the weekend 1-0. The line last night was 3.5. Ravens. The Ravens covered that. Arizona Cardinals on the road against the Houston Texans. Houston at home laying 5 points.
Yeah, I'm all in on Houston, Dave. Give me the Texans.
I will take the Texans as well to cover that 5. The Las Vegas Raiders playing well. Winners of last 2. Got a tough test. Got to go on the road. Play the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins 13.5-point favorites at home against the Raiders.
Big line. Credit to the Raiders. We love seeing Bob Spillane have his success out there.
Defensive player of the week in the AFC.
Yeah. It's good to be Bob Spillane right now, but I think they come back down to earth just enough in this game. I'll go Miami.
They'll play them tough enough to cover that. Dolphins win, but give me those 13.5 points. Tennessee on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tennessee really out of it now. Jaguars not playing great as of late, though. Jaguars, since they messed with that terrible towel, right?
Sure.
Jaguars laying 7 at home against Tennessee.
I'll say Jacksonville bounces back and wins, but AFC South game going to be close. Titans cover.
I'll take Jacksonville to blow them out. I'll lay the 7 points. New York Giants on the road against the Washington Commanders. Washington laying 9 at home against the Giants.
Game I know you'll be tuned into watching there, Dave. Give me the Commanders.
I'll take the Giants plus the 9. Ooh. I think Washington wins. I'll take the Giants to cover. Carolina at home against the Dallas Cowboys. Another big line. On the road, the Cowboys favored by 10.5.
Yeah, I got to go Dallas in this one.
I'll go Dallas as well on the road to cover that 10.5. Detroit Lions at home playing the Bears. 7.5-point favorite, the Lions are.
Yeah, Fields, I believe, is coming back. Give me Detroit, though.
This feels like a This feels like they're trying to set us up here for a touchdown game here. I'll go with the Lions lay to 7.5 points here. Green Bay at home against the Chargers. Chargers on the road laying 3 points.
The Chargers just on the road.
They're hard to predict.
Yeah, they're just a team that's frustrating. I'll take the Packers somehow, some way. I'll go Green Bay.
I'll take the Chargers lay to 3 points on the road in this one. 49ers at home against the Buccaneers. 49ers back on track now, laying 11.5 points.
Yeah, give me San Fran in that one, Dave.
I'll take San Francisco lay to 11.5 as well, too. Rams at home playing the Seahawks. Seahawks are road favorites by a point in this one.
Against the Rams, you said?
Yeah, against the Rams. Rams at home getting a point.
Yeah, Stafford back. At least he should be back. I'll take the Rams.
I'll take the Rams. I think they'll upset them, win outright. I'll take the point. Buffalo Bills, new offensive coordinator, fired Ken Dorsey. They host the Jets this week. Buffalo's favored by 7 points.
Yeah, Buffalo's one of those teams that has talent. They're the anti-Steelers where there's talent, but they just beat themselves with the turnovers and those kind of mistakes. Against that Jets defense, they can create plays. I'll see the Jets cover. I think the Bills win, but Jets cover.
I think the Bills get it straightened out and win by, 9 or 10 in this one. I'll lay the 7 points with the Bills this one. Broncos on the road against the Minnesota Vikings and Joshua Dobbs. I bet against Dobbs last week. He got me. Broncos, even so, favored by 2.5 at home against the Vikings.
I'm not betting it against Dobbs.
I'm not betting against Dobbs either. Because I want to root for him too. Yeah. So I like the Vikings in an upset. Give me those 2.5 points there. Chiefs, this one will be a good one. Chiefs at home against the Eagles. Rematch of the Super Bowl. Chiefs favored by 2.5 points at home against the Eagles. Eagles.
Yeah, that's going to be the marquee matchup for sure. This one, really tough. Chiefs at home, though. I got to go Kansas City.
Man, that Kansas City defense, if the offense can start playing up to their standards, they shouldn't have a problem, I wouldn't think, of this one. Give me the Chiefs to win by a field goal. I'll lay the 2.5 points there. That brings us all the way back to, make sure I'm not missing anything. The Browns hosting the Steelers on Sunday. Boy, the line went crazy this week, as expected because of all the quarterback news here. Even so, right now, my bookie has the Browns favored by 1.5 at home against the Steelers. Are you scared?
I am. I'm a Steelers fan. I'm perpetually scared of everything that Pittsburgh does, every game in which they play. Call this the Limbo Bowl. How low can you go is going to be, I think, the viewpoint for the scoring in this one. I wish Pittsburgh had a more veteran secondary to kind of mess with a rookie quarterback. I think you can't do some of your post-snap rotations and some of your maybe more creative, chaotic-looking coverages when you have, Trenton Thompson back there, as opposed to if you had even Keanu Neal, but definitely Minka Fitzpatrick. All that to say, though, these close games, AFC North, Pittsburgh, just a bit more stability overall, especially offensively. I think their run defense has improved greatly with Cam Hayward back. Kicker, I trust a bit more. I'm going to go Pittsburgh 16-14 for the Browns in this one.
You rat.
Is that where you're going?
I thought for sure you're going to go. I thought you're going to pick the Browns in this one. But we have a very similar score in this one. Look, full disclosure here. If at the start of the week I had this written down as a Browns win with Watson, I did, but obviously a lot's changed since then. In what I think is going to be an ugly game. I think the Steelers are just a little bit better overall in this one. I think a turnover plays huge in this one. I don't see a lot of scoring in this one. I don't have a lot of confidence in this one. All said and done, I have this being a weird score, 16-15.
Ooh.
The Browns get to 15 because of a 2-point. Maybe a couple of 2-point conversions in this game. A weird score here. Take the under 33. That's already that's a low number anyway. I had the Steelers squeaking this out somehow, some way. 16-15. So I will take the 1.5 there. Once again, my confidence level's not on this, but I mean, it's a rookie quarterback on the other side. What's Mike Tomlin like? What was it? 24 and 5, I think, against rookie quarterbacks here. DTR has made some mistakes. I think you can force him into a couple more mistakes. Just tell Kenny not to throw in, protect the football in this one. If they don't turn the football over, they should win this game, period. 16-15 Steelers.
And I just think overall the Browns have turned the ball over a ton this year offensively. Pittsburgh has not, and that might be the difference in this one for two teams who are otherwise, I think, pretty similarly built and constructed and trying to win the same ways. But the difference between the way that the Browns have given away the football the most this year of any team, Pittsburgh among the least in football, that may prove to be the difference.
All right, let's get to a couple of emails before we get out of here.
All right, let's get to some emails and close out today's show.
Bryce, we've mentioned the effectiveness of sim pressure on defense, but what your opinion is the best way for an offense to counter and beat sim pressure?
It's a great question. I've thought about it myself. I don't have a good answer to it because you just there's so much chaos. You don't know who's coming, who's dropping, how to protect. I don't have a great answer.
Well, anything you can do pre-snap to maybe try to tip them,
Mm-hmm.
To see if they're dropping out or not. I know who was it the other day that was talking about if a team lines them up more in the B gap, if they hedge towards the B gap. I don't know. You just tape study and trying to get them to tip it as much as possible there. Look, I think once again, I think Jim Schwartz doesn't care. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he sends those sims more in this game.
Yeah, I think in terms of trying to answer that question, it's difficult, but you have to know where your heart rate's at. So if they are coming and you don't have it picked up properly, you have to know where that ball is going to go. So I think identifying the best you can what the coverage is going to be, generally you can kind of get a better feel for man or zone against those sim looks, and typically it's a lot more man coverage than it is zone. But knowing where you're hot is kind of the number one thing you have to do against those looks.
All right, let me jump through a couple more here. He had another part of that, but I want to get to as many people as we can here. Mark Miller, good morning. I wanted your opinions on which team's injury situation is worse for this weekend and the season moving forward. He says, I'm very concerned about missing both inside linebackers and safeties along with Adams this weekend leaves the middle of the defense weak versus the Brown. My concern is this trumps the loss of Deshaun Watson, who I think was playing very well. Who I didn't think was playing very well anyway. He says Robertson, Robinson are run stuffers, but Njoku can exploit the middle of the field, and those are easy throws for DTR. Plus, DTR can run it as well. We aren't great versus the Browns' running game when healthy, and it seems like Minka had a lot of tackles in the first game versus a run, which now someone else will have to fill. He says the Browns have a much easier back half of the schedule, and something tells me they know a win versus the Steelers locks them into the playoffs and keeps division hopes alive. Of course, the same can be said for the Steelers. So basically, he wants to know which team's injury situation is worse this weekend and season moving forward. I think it starts and stops at the quarterback position. I get what he's saying, and he mentions Adams in here. Look, the hope is that even when Montravius Adams gets healthy from this ankle injury, you don't have to see him on the field as much. So, the time is now for Keanu Benton. So I am more concerned, obviously, about Minka. But if I was given a choice right now at this moment, all right, you're not going to have Minka in this game versus the Browns. But I guarantee you have him I will guarantee you'll have a 90% or better player for Minka against the Bengals. Give me him versus the Bengals.
Right.
Because of the quarterback situation and all. So I think, Mark, it starts and stops at the quarterback position for the Browns.
Sure. I mean, I made the point. I think that we have to probably take into consideration the weight of the defensive injuries for Pittsburgh more than maybe I think the fan base in totality is just stacking on top of each other, safeties and linebackers and communication hubs missing, but still to go from not just losing Watson, but to go from him to a rookie that's a total unknown, in this very competitive AFC North is just a killer. And yeah, Watson had struggled overall, but as Scott had said he was playing better lately. His last 3 full games have been more impressive. He went 14 for 14 with a broken shoulder and a high ankle sprain against Baltimore to come back and rally and beat them. So he was they finally were finding some traction, finally seeing what Watson could be, what they hoped he would be, and now he's out for the season. So where he was at and where he was headed makes this injury all the more painful.
Now, look, could we very easily be talking about the Steelers' inside linebackers in a negative way after this game? We hope not, but, communication and all like that, but I think it starts and stops at the quarterback position for the Browns, to be honest with you. Agreed. Justin writes in, I'm going to read this email backwards. Well, not literally, but I'm going to start at the end of it with the PS. When does Alex plan to donate his rotator cuff to Danny Smith? Look,
I got the saw right now. Whenever you say the word, Danny, I'll cut it off.
Look, I would for Minka, I'd gladly, I don't know what used a couple of 55-year-old hamstrings.
I think he'll take them back. He'll return those hamstrings of yours.
Yeah. I don't think you want to actively purchase such, but look, if Danny needed that rotator cuff, I think Alex would be the first in line there, Justin. Now for the rest of the email. I'm going to throw on my tinfoil hat real quick and say that Andy Weidel called in a favor with the Eagles to ask them to release Miles Jack off the reserve retired list yesterday. That was weird because the other guy that they released from the reserve retired list had been on there since like 90 something, hadn't he?
I'm not even aware of those things happening. No, I'm not aware of any of that.
Yeah. He wants to know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's any cap or cash benefit in releasing him off the reserve retired list. So why else would they release him? So Justin has his tinfoil hat on with Miles Jack. Could Miles Jack have gone to the team and said, look, I'm thinking about playing again. The Steelers have called. Would you do me a solid? I think I got like 2 more emails in here asking about Miles Jack. The question is what are you getting with Miles Jack at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Look, I love a good tinfoil hat question, and the whole Andy Weidel link, and the Steelers need. I get where these are coming from, so I'm not going to sit here and say unequivocally, no. Are you crazy? What, you got that thing buckled too tight? But what are you really getting in Miles Jack right now?
Yeah, for a guy that hasn't played a down of football in 11 months, essentially, he's been on the couch, retired, moving on with life's work, and his body was breaking down. The dude couldn't run last year. Now, if he's healthy, he might be a bit of a different story, but I mean, obviously he's not helping this week, and so anything we'll talk about next week, we can talk about next week. I imagine players come off of reserve retired at some point. They're not on there infinitely, so at some point they get removed. Why that is and how that works, I'm not clear of the rules there, so I guess we'll find out.
It is a little bit curious that he's all of
But
a
they
sudden,
released somebody else too, you said, at the same time?
But a guy from who was it's killing me now.
You said from their 90-man offseason roster?
No, from the 1990s. Yeah.
He was on their reserve retired list for 20 plus years.
Yeah, who the heck was that?
That these lists exist for so long.
Bernard Williams. Bernard Williams hasn't played since 1994.
How is he still on their list?
Because he was on the reserves. Was it suspended?
He got suspended.
List?
Yeah, he got suspended and never reinstated.
Yeah, reserve. He was released from the reserve suspended list.
Well, I don't know what that's all about. You got me there.
I don't know why that is. He had tried to apply for reinstatement in spring of '96. Still hadn't got for marijuana. Still was under contract to the Eagles when he was suspended in '95. They still own his NFL rights, though it remains to be seen how much interest they would have in him if he does get reinstated. A weird move, and anyway, Miles Jack was part of that transaction coming off the reserve retired. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I understand why we have 2 or 3 questions in here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll find out by next Monday or Tuesday if this was the reason he'd be coming in for a workout, presumably, or a visit or something. right after the Browns game. So we'll find out.
All right. I'll hit one last one here from Zach. Zach Watt says, longtime listener, first time writer. I've listened every week for years and can't thank you enough for what you do. This isn't criticism of Dave's analysis. We're just looking for insight after he brought up the concern with Kenny's overall completion percentage. He says, I'm not a Kenny apologist and do my best to mirror the show's objectivity in evaluating him. I had some downtime, pulled some quick stats from PFF just out of curiosity. I compared Kenny's completion percentage with some starting quarterbacks of Steelers past, highlighted below. Anyway, he's got Ben's passing attempts and completions and overall completion percentage at 64.4%, has Kenny's overall, I guess, career attempts and completion percentage at 62.3%. The TD interception ratio is obviously concerning, but if he doesn't throw a pick on Sunday, I believe Yin said he ties a franchise record. How many attempts does he have to go for the franchise record for longest streak without a? Did you write that up?
I don't know that. What I framed it as most consecutive games without an interception, minimum 15 attempts in a game. If he goes another game against Cleveland, he'll be the second quarterback to go 6 straight with Bubby Brister. I don't know what the actual record is for consecutive attempts, though. I can try to look that up.
And he's also got here, some of the other quarterbacks here and all like that. Completion percentage. All right, let's look at average depth of target. I think that's something that really, really needs to be looked at here. If you want to play the game of just looking at total completion percentage of you got Ben down here at 64.4 and Pickett at 62.3. That'll if you dig deeper into this, especially you're talking about career for Roethlisberger, to put up the numbers that he did based on what his average depth does. Pro Football Reference pull this up real quick, Alex?
Mm-hmm.
What is Ben's career? And they probably don't because it goes back so far. But what average depth of target do they have Ben as?
I can try to look in just our second here. It might take some more time for me to dive into that than what we probably have here. Average depth of target. Yeah, it would take some time. He's pulling Ben's career completion percentage.
He's got 8,000 something.
Yeah, I see it now. It's still lower, obviously. And again, I think completion percentage, the most salient point is it's about eras and where you're at. When Ben played in an earlier era, completion percentages were down. Just as an example, I believe in 2023, the league-wide completion percentage is 65%. And there's been some bad quarterback play this year, probably pulling that number down. In 2005, Ben's second year, it was 59.5%. So you're seeing a 5-point bump over that span. Now, I'm talking about Ben's entire career, which spans different eras. But again, Pickett's is worse by not a small margin and in an era where completion percentages are as high as they've ever been. So I think you look at the era more so than past quarterbacks.
And look, I think overall average depth of target plays a factor in this, percentage of deep shots, yada yada, and also look, you drill it down the third down.
Yeah, so I think there's probably some more than just looking at that one basic baseline number.
Right. I understand the way he's trying to frame it. Look, I said this at the top of the show. If middle of the field stuff aside, all that yada yada, the pushing the football down the field a little bit further aside, man, if Kenny starts, if Kenny can get his completion, I'll be more distinct. If Kenny Pickett can increase his completion percentage on third down specifically, that will really make a big deal, I think, in this passing game.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Let me try to, I don't think I can get you the ADOT, but I can at least get you intended air yards per attempt, which is probably the closest I can do if you just give me one more second to try to look some of these up.
Right.
I don't know I have no idea what the results would be. Maybe they'd be similar. Maybe they wouldn't be. Let's see if I can find it.
Because while you looked at that, I looked yesterday and just on his third down, or just his overall completion percentage on each down. on first down, he's got a very low average depth of target number, one of the lower in the league. Second down, generally the same there. Now, third down, his average depth of target is kind of an eyebrow raiser. I think it was something like 9 or 10 yards or something like that, but it's not like the Steelers are facing a lot of 3rd and 9 or 10 or, type situations there. So,
right.
Makes you kind of wonder, is he trying to push? And look, you get on the quarterback too. They're not throwing for the chains enough, is he trying to throw past the chains too much? It's something that we would have to drill down. I'm not just going to use that as a blanket statement and a hill to die on there, but it's the thing. Once we get out of the season, there'll be certainly something we want to dig deeper on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess intended air yards per press attempt is essentially average depth of target from what I'm reading off of PFR here. Now, they only have it back to 2018. Because if you go back before, the numbers are incomplete. But from 2018 to 2021, he was at 7.2. Pickett was at 7.3 currently. But of course, we're talking later year Ben, where the short game became the only game primarily. So it's hard to compare that. And Ben's completion percentage from 2018 to 2021 was 65.4. Pickett's at 62.3. That's a 3-point swing.
Yeah, look, I don't think that you can just look at the raw stats here once again. I think I think error has a play in this, and also I think depth of target has a little say in this. And then look at the 2 quarterbacks on third down.
Right. So hard to compare that overall.
But I think a big focus, not only this week, but moving into the second half of the season. We talked about this when we broke down Kenny the other day and all like that. Man, if he can make some strides on third downs, and once again, you go back to the second half of that game against the Packers. Now, look, I realized one of those was called back on the Yankee concept on offensive pass interference, and you're going to have a few of those here and there, outliers and all like that. How can he play on third down moving forward? And if he still plays the same type of game on first and second down, if he can make those strides on third down and get that completion percentage, up over 50, it might make a huge difference in this offense.
At least in this game, for sure.
So play the home version of Kenny on third down Sunday night. We'll make sure to recap that during the Monday show. Anything else?
No, that should cover it. Long show today, but a lot of good information and a critical game on Sunday. So win, lose, or draw, which is possible when it comes to the Steelers. We'll be back to cover things on Monday for you guys.
All right, we sure will. Shout out to Scott Petrak again. Make sure you follow him on Twitter and shout him out if you get a chance to do so. So and until Monday, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, find the ad-free button on mobile or on desktop version and go that route there. So, Alex, I enjoyed it. We'll get back after it on Monday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.